Section 2. Land Use and Land Rights. Beginning in the 17th century, Dutch artists began to paint landscape art. Landscape painting soon became popular through the Romantic period. Artists from the Romantic period include Caspar David Friedrich, John Constable, and Thomas Cole. As the Romantic period shifted to the United States, landscape art began to use their manifest destiny, a 19th century cultural belief that American settlers had the divine right to enter to the west of America. There are 5 terms used to describe Native Americans: Indigenous, Native American, First Nations, Aboriginal, and Indian. First Nations are used to describe Indigenous people besides the Métis and Inuits. Aboriginal is more universal, that is used in Canada and the United States. Landmark, footprints. Allura was born in Philadelphia in 1974. Allura was educated at the University of Richmond and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She participated in the independent study program at New York's Whitney American Art Museum. Her partner, Calzadilla, was born in 1971 in Havana, Cuba. He was educated at the Escuela de Artes Plásticas y Diseño de Puerto Rico, Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, and Bard College. Calzadilla's education lines up with their various media, which include sculpture, performance, photography, video, and sound art. They currently live in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Allura and Calzadilla both studied abroad in Florence. Landmark is in a response to U.S. military occupation. During World War II, U.S. military took possession of Vieques, Cuba. Residents in Vieques organized a civil disobedience campaign, creating the Vieques Fishermen's Association. Tension was heightened when, on April 19th, a fighter pilot and ground control officer accidentally killed a security guard after the pilot selected an incorrect target on the ground and dropped 2 500-pound bombs within feet of David Sanchez Rodriguez, instantly killing him. Landmark is an artwork where protesters wear custom-made shoes with pictures laser cut onto the soles of a plexiglass. The images include 2 large X's, one over an ammunition storage area of the western side of the island and another over the bombing range on the eastern side. More common images include symbols of peace and weapons. A more important image is the Apollo 11 space mission, representing the U.S. government's range of taking over land. Protesters with these images walked onto military grounds, which triggered a heat sensor on the bombing range and effectively ceased active explosions for the period that the protesters remained on site. The word landmark has 2 meanings. The first and more obvious term is a visible object within a landscape that allows travelers to establish their location. The landmark established in Vieques is the bombing range. To combat this landmark footprints sought to remove a permanent occupant of Vieques with marks that were more short-lasting. Another work on top of Landmark is their work in 2005 called Under Discussion, which is a 6-minute video showing a fisherman driving an upside-down table with a motor attached to the back around the island. The man in the video circles a traditional path for fishing in Vieques, which then included large craters from exploded bombs and signs indicating the presence of other explosions that had never detonated. The Fourth World. Kent Monkman was born in 1965 in St. Mary's, Ontario, Canada. Identifying as a Cree artist, he works on paintings, film, video, performance, and installations. Monkman's most popular technique is called appropriation. Sherry Levine first coined the term appropriation by taking photographs of other photographs. Modern photographers like Walker Evans use appropriation to communicate a different meaning from the photographer because of the time in which they were made, the identity of the artist, and their intention in making the work. Monkman's Fourth World uses 2 different appropriation tactics, from one the American Romantic landscape period and the 20th century site-specific sculptures. In the background, there is the Yosemite waterfall in the Yosemite National Park, which is based on the painting titled Choluki, the Yosemite Fall, which was created by Albert Bierstadt. Contemporary of this romantic landscape paintings are Thomas Moran, Thomas Hill, and Albert Bierstadt, who all use the manifest destiny. These paintings convince members of Congress to dedicate national park lands, which ironically displaced more Native Americans. The displacement and mandatory work these indigenous people were forced to do is called the California Genocide. None of the Miwok people who lived on that land are shown. The Fourth World depicts contemporary men playing Indian by wearing camouflage clothing, not to disguise themselves, but as a fashion statement. The second artistic appropriation in Monkman's painting is the rusted Corten steel walls through which the bison run. They are a copy of the artwork Clara Clara by the American artist Richard Sura. First associated with the post-minimalism movement of the late 1960s, Sura worked alongside the land art movement to establish specificity as a key element of his outdoor sculptures. His first site-specific art piece is called the Tilted Arc. The Tilted Arc was originally installed in Lower Manhattan using public funds. However, a small number of federal white-collar workers gave complaints. After some back and forth, the Clara was moved from the Beaubourg area of Paris to the Paris Tuileries Garden for the exhibition Monumenta 2008. The Clara was used as a bison jump. It's a tradition of Native American hunters to use natural land formations like two narrow cliffs to direct bison for slaughter. Milkman's work involves George Catlin's earlier paintings of the 19th century, documenting and effectively typecasting native subjects. The Fourth World refers to cultures that are without their own sovereignty because they are forced to exist within another political nation. Battle for the Woodlands. Bonnie Devine was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada in 1952. She is an Indigenous installation artist, curator, writer, and educator, and member of the Serpent River First Nation of Northern Ontario. She studied art at the Ontario College of Art and Design University and earned a Master of Fine Arts from York University. She has taught at Ontario College of Art and Design University and served as a founding chair of its Indigenous Visual Culture program. Devine's early site-specific installations include the Reclamation Project. The Reclamation Project is a response to the Ipperwash crisis, where Anishinaabe protester Dudley George, while protesting at the Indigenous protests at Camp Ipperwash in the Kettle and Stony Point First Nation, was shot and killed by the police. In an effort to comment on the land claim and standoff at Camp Ipperwash, Devine installed 6 rolls of sod at various sites for 10 minutes in order for her to take a Polaroid picture. The first site was a gravel road that adjoins 2 fields in the Lindy Shores Conservation Area. In another site, the sod was at the front steps of a sizable health institute in downtown Toronto. Adding another artwork to the Reclamation Project is the canoe. The canoe was her Master's of Fine Arts thesis that formed a 16-foot canoe. The canoe was part of a larger multimedia installation titled Stories from the Shield, which includes drawings, rocks, and tree stumps that Devine wrapped in silk threads, and video depicting her family members discussing the negative effects that uranium mining had on the Serpent River First Nation. According to art historian Cynthia Fowler, it is stated that Devine's thesis included depictions of traditional canoe technology and the 1850 Robinson-Huron Treaty was developed by the Canadian government to control the northern shores of Lake Huron, in large part for the purpose of developing the mining industry. The Battle for the Woodlands was displayed in their own room in the Art Gallery of Ontario. The room included freestanding sculptures made out of maple and willow trees, and decorated with moose and buffalo hides. The sculptures are anchored by a 19th century colonial map of the border region between Upper and Lower Canada and the US. The sculptures included 5 animals painted in red oxide, which are buffalo, otter, turtle, rabbit, and leviathan. In addition, it shows the clashes between British, American, and Indigenous peoples, and placing beads along borderlines once established by treaties that were later broken. A final element of the painting shows dozens of animals, including deers, bisons, bears, and rabbits fleeing to the west. Devine describes this migration as the catastrophic habitat loss. Art historian Mark Cheatham acknowledges that the Indigenous people continue to experience displacement. Will Wilson is a contemporary Dene artist. Wilson got his bachelor's in studio art and art history at Oberlin College. Then he was awarded a Master of Fine Arts degree at University of New Mexico. He is currently the head of photography at Santa Fe Community College. Church Rockspill Evaporation Ponds is part of a photography series Wilson calls Survey. In Survey, he documents contaminated lands within and on the borders of the Dinétah land that remain polluted as a result of various environmentally harmful extraction activities. 4 million tons of uranium ore were extracted from mines on the lands of the Navajo Nation. Church Rock Spill is 2 ponds that were used to evaporate water contaminated with tailings, which contains heavy metals, uranium, and radium. On July 16, 1979, the dam holding contaminated water was breached, releasing more than 93 million gallons of radioactive liquid into the Puerto Rico River, traveling 80 miles downstream to Navajo County, Arizona. It remains the largest radioactive spill in U.S. history. Judy Pasternak discusses the effects of the largest radioactive spill in U.S. history, describing the 50-mile downstream Fort Danders, Arizona. The U.S. Government Accountability Office recognized that over 500 abandoned mines were located in the Navajo habitat. The Church Rock spill was overshadowed by the 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. Wilson despises the manifest destiny, taking his outrage on popular Edward S. Curtis, who widely exhibited stereotyped portraits of Native American subjects. To combat this sterilization, Wilson used a wet plate collodion, which was 8 inches by 10 inches in the camera. Other artists that include the representation of Native Americans are Timothy O'Sullivan and Arthur Scott. The word survey in Wilson's project uses all of the definition of surveys.